Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SAMO Technologies podcast. I'm here with a really good friend of mine, Elibeth, and she's an entrepreneur from South America. I'm going to let her introduce herself. And today, in this episode, we're just going to have a get to know each other format. So it's a little bit different than the other ones that we had before. Ellie, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Hey there. Well, I'm Elibeth Castellanos. I'm from South America and I'm an entrepreneur and empowered woman. That I'm very interested in this field or area of technologies because as I'm a non-tech person, I would like to feel more comfortable to develop some new skills and personal projects related to my profession at long term. And that's why I would like to know a little bit more about your company, Cisco, about you, how was that impact for you? How did you start this journey? So are we good? Are we on the same page?
We're on the same page. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your professional background? I think it's very interesting, right? Like you've done a couple of things. You want to talk a little bit about that? Your online presence?
Yeah, of course. I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm also a human resources person, mostly working on talent acquisition. But as a clinical psychologist, my long-term project has always been focused on get more clients through social media to website. And one of my goals this year is to build a website that can lead to more patients and they can find the information about me, they can schedule the sessions with me, they can obtain a little bit more information,
Mm,
some guides, and well, that's basically my goal for this year as a clinical psychologist.
great. Definitely some technologies can assist with that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too.
I'm
And
pretty
yeah,
sure.
yeah, so you have some questions for me, right? And
Yes.
I feel like I'm just talking to a friend here. We've known each other for a while now. So whatever you need to know, let me know. I'm here for you.
Well, I think everyone would like to know, like, well, Cisco, you're an engineer by profession, by training, but you're also a founder by passion with SAMO Technologies. It's like your child. So, how was that transition for you, or when was that light bulb moment that made you jump from building code to building SAMO Technologies?
That's a really good question. So I always been on the technology side of things since the beginning of my career. But I always was a little bit curious about the business side of things because I started to notice that even though technology is a very important aspect of tech companies, there was a bigger portion of it, which was the business side, incorporating a company, running that, doing taxes as an incorporated body entity from Delaware. So I wanted to know more about that side of things. And later in my career as an employee working in startups, I always will ask the founders to give me a little bit more access to that side of things so I can see how it was to talk to investors, running the company itself, the different departments that were needed. But I never really wanted to do it by myself, right? When the pandemic came, one thing about startups is that normally they are pre-revenue, meaning that they don't make money. And the
Okay.
2020 pandemic just froze the economy, meaning that
Yeah.
companies that were not making money couldn't even make any projections because people were not spending money, so all the numbers were skewed. And that led to a bunch of layoffs, especially for early stage companies. Many of them just disappear. And I
Right.
saw that as an opportunity with some friends to start a consulting firm for technology. And that's how I got kind of like forced to swim in a way into learning more about the business side, which is an experience that I think is great. And I love that it happened the way it happened.
That's amazing. You're currently based in Silicon Beach, right? In Santa Monica. So, how does the energy or the culture of LA influence the way you approach this kind of technology development? What's the difference between the traditional model with this model for you based in LA?
Right. Well, I think, believe it or not, what I think is healthy about Los Angeles tech culture is that it's not the only industry in town, right? So when I used to go to San Francisco, in the Silicon Valley area, the tech hub of the United States, the bars were boring. at least for me, coming from Los Angeles, right? And it felt like it was a town for engineers by engineers, which is not bad, but it's just not my vibe. Now, when you come to Los Angeles, right, there's a different vibe because there's different industries. You have Hollywood, you have banking, you have every single other industry in town. So it's not absorbed by tech, at least in LA County area. So that's the difference, I think. I think that being in LA tech scene is a little bit more healthy in that sense that after work you can go to a bar or any place and you'll find people from different industries. So it is really a way to get away from work and really enjoy the company of people from different industries, right? And I mean, I like the tech scene in Los Angeles in that regard. And also, I think we have more bootstrapping companies here. They're not so dependent on VC money too, more angel investor driven.
Okay. Well, I'm a big fan of your social media like LinkedIn and Instagram, and I'm always seeing like you're like providing us this type of like a smart hiring, hire with us, the nearshore model, the nearshore solution. So why do you think that the lesson is that the best founders don't try to do it all? What's mostly the biggest tip that you can provide to a founder to do the smart hiring?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when it comes to hiring people, another gift that the COVID lockdown gave us were remote tools, right? So before COVID, productivity tools for brainstorming really they didn't really exist. There were some, they were very expensive. They needed a special setup like TV with touch screens and stuff like that. Or Cisco video conferencings were going up for like 20K the setup. But with COVID, Zoom, Google Meet, Lucy Chart, all these companies, Figma, were trying to create these spaces online.
Okay.
Yeah, I think learning how to use those tools for remote productivity and team, especially brainstorming, I think is one of the best things that founders can do because, especially early stage startups, because whether you like it or not, probably your budget is going to force you to work with a remote team eventually.
Right. And we can always save money and extend the runway if we follow these kind of steps, right?
What do you mean, like spend the wrong kind of money?
No, no, because the startups usually want to extend their runway. So if you go from like a position to save money, you will definitely make like the perfect match with the nearshore model,
Of
right?
course, yes, yes. And I can tell you again by talking with early stage founders working in early stage startups, you see where the money is allocated. I mean, also in SAMO Technologies, we have published some studies that show where companies spend most of their money, right? And number one is marketing and paying for employees, right? HR salaries. And we cannot help with marketing, right? That's not our niche, but we can help with the tech side of things, right? And that is if you want to have the core team in your city, that's completely fine. I understand a lot of people like that model, but especially if you're tech savvy, you can rely on having a nearshore team, which will save you a ton of money, at least from our side on tech salaries.
And I think something really like relevant to this kind of input is that if you're a CEO, you don't have to replace your current team. You can complete your current team too with the nearshore engineers. And probably that's something that not a lot of people are aware. Maybe that's the most important thing here because you will have like the perfect fit, the perfect combination for it to keep grow like the scale of your team, right?
Yeah, that goes back to the remote tools, right? So just because you have the mobile development in Brazil or anywhere in South America or Southern Europe or Eastern Europe doesn't mean that you need to get rid of your in-house team that maybe is taking care of the website or the backend, right? So there's always a possibility of segmenting the workforce globally, which now it is something that one of the biggest trait of somebody an entrepreneur is adaptation. And these times, right, you cannot just wait it out anymore, right? The economy is bad. It's probably gonna get worse. So we need to adapt, right? Like it's not a matter of like I'm gonna wait it out. You need to adapt. And one of the best adaptations that you can do for your company right now is adopt the global talent model, meaning nearshore and international talent, right? Remote work.
I know, Cisco, that you as a person are very into the emotional intelligence. So, how do you ensure that the culture fit and communication is accurate for the founder, the CEO, or the company?
Yeah, so I always been involved in the hiring process of the company that I work for in one way or another. And I learned a lot from the people that were above me during those years, right? And one of the things that I developed myself was educating myself about emotional intelligence, right?
Okay.
Because, and I mean, you work with engineers, right? Like, I think I know for a fact that you have worked with many software engineers in your career too, and it is like a stereotype that software engineers
Indeed.
may have a mood, right?
They
Or
have
their
like a kind of personality.
yes, they might have some personality traits that might not be so socially acceptable, right? And but not all of them, right? And I was like, okay, so I don't feel like I'm that bad, right? And as a software engineer, right? And I was like, I don't feel my friend over there is that bad, right? Like we're very like social able creatures, I think, when we want to, right? And so I started to look more into the psychology of that. What is that about, right? And there's other industries that have it too, right? So if you go into entertainment, because I will bring this conversation to people in the entertainment industry here in Los Angeles, right? Like, and they were talk about diva actors, right? People that are just really hard to work with, right? That they're
Yeah.
always late. They don't respect other people's time. They want everybody to work around them, right? So as I started looking more into it, I found the evil genius complex, right? Which is like supposed to be really good engineer, and a lot of it is just by choice that they feel entitled to misbehave and ignore a lot of the social manners, the manners that we have as a society. And sometimes there's a deeper problem, right? Like sometimes there's psychological issues that I'm pretty sure you will know what I'm talking about, Ellie, from your psychology background. But there's ways to mitigate that too, right? Like that's not an excuse to be an asshole or a mean person to other people. I don't know what you think about that. I don't think it's an excuse.
Probably you can mention the just like three benefits from this kind of
Mhm.
hiring, most related to soft skills. How would that
Yeah.
look?
Yeah. So I designed a couple of questions that kind of like makes you see how a person feels about certain situations, right? The kind of language that they
Okay.
use. Do they use inclusive language like what we did or
Okay.
what we did as a team or my contribution was? Or they use more like a single point of view language like this
That's
is what I did,
interesting.
right? This is what I did. This is the way that I handle the situation, and maybe they live out of the, the what they're telling you, how other people help the process, right? And that's bad for two things, right? The first one is that one, they might think that they did it on their own without the help of others, right? And the second is that they actually did it on their own because they don't like to work with other people. So either way you see it, it's kind of problematic. Of course, there's a third one, which means they were the first engineer and there was nobody else to work with, which that's most of the time okay. But the other two are a little bit of red flags when it comes to emotional intelligence.
Okay. Well, let's picture this. I'm the founder of my clinical psychologist project, and my vision is to create this website where I can just forget about the follow-ups through WhatsApp, through calls. I want like all the possible automations through my website. Does that make sense? Okay.
Right. So
How will be the process? What will be the first step SAMO takes to turn that into a scalable product?
right. So yeah, so this is a good example, right? So you're kind of like talking about the outcome of what you want your product to be, but there's a lot of technical requirements that get involved with that. And if you go, for example, to an agency or to an engineer and you just describe it just the way that you did to me, they're probably gonna build something that you don't want, right? Like they'll be like, that's not what I asked you to do.
Right.
And so then the question becomes, so how do you tell a technological team what to build so you get out of it exactly what you envision, right? And that's when the software development cycle comes into play, right? And the software development cycle includes a period for ideation, right? Which is kind of like a lot of brainstorming. Maybe you and I will meet and we flesh out all the things that we want your website to do, right? In a brainstorming session. And we write it down uh, in a collaborative space like LucidChart or a cyber whiteboard, and we gather all that information, right? So okay, so they can sign up. It's going to be an individual account or it's going to be a household account or some sort of
Amazing.
account, right? I want it to be easy for them to log in, so I want to send them a magic link to their email. I don't want them to deal with passwords, so that's one requirement, right? And then, when it comes to the consultation part of it, is it going to be online? Is it going to be in person? So how do we manage your schedule or your office schedule with the users, right? So do we integrate with the calendar, like Google Calendar, and we let people choose the times that they would like to come in, and you just like keep your calendar up to date at that point, right? But is that something that you're okay doing, or you just want to put certain windows when you're available, right?
Well, I think both ways are pretty good, to be honest. But now that we're talking about automations and organization, what do you think about AI? This, like, for example, this 2026, how do you see AI related to the tech stacks? How will that work together?
Yeah, so that's a good question, right? One big misconception about AI is that they can be completely autonomous, meaning that you just add AI to your website
Yeah,
and it
they're
will
going to
figure out.
replace all of us, like you and me.
Yeah, and that's not really the case, right? Like once you look deep into AI, it is not like you can just add an agent to your website and it will figure out how to help your customers, right? It is still a large language model right now, what we call AI, which is a machine learning algorithm instead of a trained model, instead of an actual intelligent entity. But, there's some words that get used in the industry just to promote product. And I think this is a good case of it. And so what you need to do with AI is, in this case, you will need agentic AI, right? And agentic AI, what it means is you have your API, so the services that your company offers as a software interface, which is booking an appointment, maybe helping the user fetch the upcoming dates that they need to be online or in person with you, and maybe any money that they owe or pending charges. So what would you do with agentic AI? You grab one of these frameworks, OpenAI. You can grab LangChain, a bunch of them to choose from, right? Bedrock with SageMaker by Amazon, Vertex by Google. There's a bunch of these frameworks out there now. You choose one and you do something called tool agent tools, right? So you tell the agent, look, these are the API endpoints or the services that Eli companies offer. And this is what you need to send to these services, the information that you need to send to these services in order to complete the task, in order to book a session. And then you give them the tools, which is kind of like a program code that you write, and then the agents know how to use that. And that's how you integrate AI to, well, one of the ways that you can integrate AI to your website, right? That's one of the most popular ways, which is kind of like
Yeah.
retrofitting the API interface with AI.
I think most of people think when they use AI or they think about AI, they feel like cheating. But I think that AI can be nothing without you. I mean, you're the leader of the AI. So I guess it will work like that on the tech side too, because it will be like, how do you say like this?
Come together.
Yeah, but like
Right.
a contribution, a mutual contribution.
Yeah. So actually this I tell this to all the engineers that I talk to. Actually, AI is not a replacement; it's a tool, right? So there's a very famous trend of vibe coding, where like people without technical background try to do websites with AI, and there are some very technical people that figure out how to do it without knowing how to code, which is great. But there's the other reality that for now the AI leaves it in your computer. There's a whole other process of getting that out to the world through deployment, right? ICD, circular integration, and continuous deployment pipelines, where the code that is in your computer, you take it to the cloud providers like AWS, Azure, Google, and AI can guide you through that, but I wouldn't recommend it, right? Like it is pretty much like a monkey playing with a gun at that point, right? Like it can tell you to do things that maybe you don't need.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is to have domain expertise, right, in whatever you're doing with AI. That's the
It's the
best way to
same.
prevent backfires.
It's the same when someone wants to use AI as their own psychologist, their own therapist, and I'm like, no, please don't do that. I mean, it can be like helpful, like a guide or something, but it's not therapy, so please don't. But yeah, it's like a tool.
Yeah. I don't think we're there yet in order to use AI as a therapist or a friend that you can talk to, just because it is not so it has some behaviors that will be concerning, right? So first of all, it has glazing, which will always try to give you something that you like as an answer, right?
They will validate everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So they will try to make you feel good about any answers. That's their job. One way to avoid that is through programming the AI prompts programmatically, because then you're allowed access to the temperature, right? And the temperature means kind of like how much, how creative you want the AI response to be. And it's measured from 0 to 1. So by default, the default setting is zero point 0.8, I think, in OpenAI, if I'm not mistaken, which means that's a lot of creativity, meaning that it uses a lot of things that it just think it sounds good, right? And the other setting will be the amount of tokens used per request. So pretty much the default one, I think, is 2,000 tokens, which is not a lot. And what that means is how much effort do you want the AI agent to put into giving you an answer? And when you access the model programmatically, you have access to those settings, which normally you don't have access with the web interface or the mobile app, right? And that's when probably somebody like me can guide you through in doing it in a better way. But still, I wouldn't recommend using it for a therapy session, just because I know the
Yeah.
nature of how it is made, and I don't think it's a good idea right
I'm
now.
agree with you. You already gave us a free AI class and a call to action related to mental health related to AI. So that was very helpful. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, Cisco. I think I just have two more questions. Like, if you go back to your first day as an engineer, what piece of advice would you give yourself about this business field, about this business side of technology?
I think that's something that I did beginning my career, and this was based on my gut feeling, right?
Okay.
As engineers, as software engineers, you have the privilege to be able to work in different industries, right? So healthcare needs a software engineer. The entertainment industry needs a software engineer. Rocket companies, space companies need software engineers. Everybody needs a software engineer. And sometimes when you're young, you just look for prestige and status. So you might go to a big company where you're just gonna write a couple of functions. Now, even just with AI, run unit tests, deploy it, and not worry about it, right? But I think what you can get the most out of this career, how you can get the most out of this career is know what you're going to learn when you join a company, right? It's not just about how much they're going to get out of you and how much they're going to pay you. It also matters what you're going to get out of it, right? Are you going to learn new skills? Are you going to have access to a section of the business that you normally don't have access to? Like, are you going to work on an acquisition funnel in a marketing company? Which is great because eventually, when you want to create your own company, or if you're ever planning to do that, then you're going to have marketing knowledge because you're probably going to work in a cross-functional team with people that are marketing experts, product experts, and you're going to learn a lot, right? So I think that will be my advice. Don't look only for what you're going to get out of the company, money, salary wise, and what you're going to contribute to it. Also, see how it's going to help you for your self development, personal development, what you're going to learn.
Amazing, Cisco. Thanks for sharing that. And now my last question will be, how can we build my dream team for 2026, or how can founders can build their dream team for 2026?
Yes, self-absorbed as this may sound, I think they need to meet with me, right? So when they meet with me, I will see what they want to build and what kind of talent that they need to hire, right? Because I think that something that everybody in the tech industry is very familiar with is the iteration process, right? Meaning that, you kind of like snowball your final vision of the product. You start with something, the MVP, the most valuable version of your product, and then you grow it into the final form, right? So that core team that is going to build the first iteration of your product needs to be kind of like measured twice, cut only once process. So, what kind of engineer do you need, right? Because even engineering has different flavors, right? There's front end engineer, back end engineer, full stack, architect, um, and because I see this mistake a lot of people just hire somebody that has a lot of management experience from one of the big tech companies like Google or Facebook. But how much startup experience do they have? Because what they're probably going to build for you is going to be a very expensive tech stack in AWS or Google Cloud, right? That will have zero users or a couple of hundred users, and you'll be stuck with a giant cloud bill, right? Versus maybe somebody that has 5 year, 3 years of experience working with early stage startups and will deploy a serverless architecture for you with AWS services that probably is going to cost you like $50 a month for development because you don't have
Right.
users right now, but it will scale smoothly when you get like 100,000 users or 1 million users, right? So that's why I will say the first thing will be to try to talk to a fractional CTO, right? Or a consultant, especially if they're not technical, and see what the kind of people that you need, right? Because I give you another example outside of technology, side of things, right? Marketing, right? So I myself have spent a lot of money in marketing agencies for my business. And one of the mistakes is that you need to figure out what kind of marketing agency you're working with, right? Because some of them, the way that they do spray all, torch the earth method, where they just spend a lot of money in different ads, a version of ads, and they just keep putting more money on the one that performed the best. Which is great if your marketing budget is, a couple $100,000 a month, but it's really bad if you're bootstrapping your startup, right? And you want to look for maybe a marketing expert that will sit down with you, understand the personas that you're targeting, your demographic, right? And see what kind of keywords, what kind of things will engage that audience, right? It might be very different than just buying Google ads, for example, or Facebook
Yeah.
ads. So I think I will say that will be me. But that will be my advice. If you're not technical, invest in consultants to have a vision of what you really need to deploy the first iteration of your product. I don't know what else we can add there. Maybe something that I'm missing there, Ellie.
Maybe that we'll have to schedule a consultation with you, and
Right.
that's it. I
Yeah.
think that's the end of this of this session. We just need to schedule a consultation with SAMO Technologies. So, and it's important that I think all industries can apply for this. You don't just have to be like a tech startup. You can be any product. So that's great.
Yeah, of course. I think different companies need different kind of help, and it is important to knowing how to adjust and pick the right tools for to get the job done.
Yeah, so let's build our dream team with SAMO Technologies. Thank you so much for your time, Cisco. Would you like to add something else?
No, I think we're good. Thank you so much for your time, Ellie. It was great talking to you, and have a great rest of your day. Okay.
Amazing, thanks.